Exercise P2-14 has a rectangular shape with all four corners cut off and then a series of flat ovals in the center of it. To accomplish this, I'm going to take a look at this feature based. I know that those four corner cuts can be accomplished with the chamfer, and the interior feature can be accomplished using a secondary extruded feature. So the basic sketch for this is going to look pretty simple. So again, I'm going to go to New. This one's metric, so I'll choose standard millimeter IPT. Start my 2D sketch, and I'll just go ahead and start this on the front. And what I'm going to do here, I always like to keep the center point somewhat centered if I have a symmetrical design. So if I look at exercise P2-14, I can see that it's symmetrical about the X and the Y axis from the center of the feature. So I'm going to go to a 2-point center rectangle to create this. Now I know that this is 150 across and it is 80 tall. So with that 150 and that 80, I have my rectangle, and that's all I'm doing for the initial sketch. So once I finish this sketch, I can then extrude my model, and it says that the thickness is 7.5 millimeters. At this point, I want to create my secondary extruded feature, so I'm just going to left click in here and click on sketch. Now I know that everything is going to be symmetrical about this center line, so I'm going to start by doing the line command. And I'm going to bring the line command in just a little bit and then up. Then I'm going to left click and drag that around to get my top arc. And then I'm going to bring this down, over, left click and drag to get my next series, or my next arc. Now I can see that I'm using a wireless mouse and it had a little bit of an issue, so my wireless mouse actually ended my arc command before I wanted to, so I can undo the last two arcs and go right back to my line command. When you're using a wireless mouse, it's important that you make sure it's not accidentally clicking all over the place, because then you can have issues like I just did. You want to make sure that everything is lining up as you're going, or it could potentially cause you some problems. So I had that one incident with the arc where it didn't exactly work right, and I know that that's just my wireless mouse. It doesn't always click and drag the way that it's supposed to. So now that I've got the basic shape, I can begin putting the rest of the dimensions in. I know for a fact I want a vertical constraint between this center point and this center point and this center point and this center point. I want horizontal constraints between here and here, and that should line up this side as well with everything else being lined up. I can now apply some dimensions. I know that the dimension between here and here is 110 millimeters. And because everything else kind of grew at the same time, it looks like I may have another dimension off somewhere, but I'll get to that in a second. I know that the radius for this is 10, and I can do an equal constraint between here, and that's going to set that one. And I'll do another equal constraint between here and here. And now I can do my overall height, which is going to be 20 plus 20. So the overall height of this is going to be 40. But I know that between here and here is 20. So now the only thing I have left to do is go between here and here, which is going to be 55. Now that I have all of my dimensions in, I can finish this sketch. And I'll go to extrude and say that I want it to go all, and it automatically changes it to cut and switches the direction, so I can now say OK to that. Next I want to put in my chamfers, which is underneath the fillet command. And in looking at the drawing, all of my chamfers are 20 by 20 chamfers. So I'll go to chamfer, and I can just put in 20 millimeters because they're all equally distant. Click on all four corners of this shape, and again for this back one, I know there's an edge back there, so I can left click it, hit the checkbox, and here we have figure P2-14 completed.